Well, I got burned on a gig, and I wanted to share this now and maybe post it later, let some time pass, because I really don't like to air dirty laundry. And this isn't dirty laundry, but more of just, all right, this is what the business is. And, I'm not mad, I'm not angry, I'm just kind of like, those are the breaks. And I might speak in some vague generalities, and that's what I tend to do on this channel because I don't want to drop names, whether they're big names or little names, or not like I could ever drag anyone's name through the mud with my bounty of 310 subscribers. But again, I like to speak publicly like I do privately, and that is talking about people with respect and respecting people's privacies and reasons. And never wanting to speak ill of people, even when the situation is tough. And the tough situation I'm in is that there was an artist that needed someone to fill in kind of last minute. Artist has a good fan base, good following. I like this artist's music very much. And I thought it was a really good opportunity for me to go and play and do another style of music that I don't get to normally play, but I'm really, really proficient at. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to really showcase my versatility, and I can like get some really good content on this run I'm going to do with this artist. And I nearly backed out of some really big commitments because I wanted to play with this artist. But I slipped on it and I said, hey, I would love to do this run with you, but I have these commitments on these dates, so I can't do this first part with you. If you need to use someone else for the entire run, you can. Thanks for giving me the offer. And the artist got back to me, said, no problem, just meet us up for the second part of the run. And I was like, all right, this is great. And it was going to be some hard miles on the road probably, and that's, we all have to kind of more or less pay our dues. Again, we don't get paid to play music, we get paid to travel. Music's just the fun break in between like the travel work, but the main job is hauling gear, traveling to gigs, not sleeping at home, sleeping very little, riding in an uncomfortable van. You know, the cherry on top is music. But I digress. So a few days before things were supposed to hit off, this artist had kind of an emergency, and it was no knock on them at all. They did nothing wrong. It was out of their control. They couldn't have prevented it. And it was, I felt bad for them. And I, said, hey, heard the bad news. Sorry to hear about that. Sending you my best wishes. And it looked like things weren't going to go off anyways. So I'm really glad that I didn't back out of my commitments in the first place. But I was also kind of bummed that that second part where I was going to get to play with some really cool people, it's not going to happen. Well, things kind of quickly moved, and a couple days later, it was like, hey, we're doing it. We're leaving in 3 or 4 days. Can you do it? And I said, well, yeah, sure, let's do it. And I was a little bit stressed about like the quick turnarounds. I was a little bit stressed about like the long overnight drives. But that's how the sausage gets made. And this was also during the middle of a busy run for me, where I was like doing multiple gigs in a day, and I couldn't always get back to messages. So I'm playing. I think it's playing a Friday gig, and I'm getting messages like, "Hey, can you leave on like Sunday instead of Monday or Tuesday?" Moving things back like a day or two, and I would have to cancel some other gigs. Again, not huge gigs, but I'm like, oh man, this is okay. And I said, yeah, sure, I think I can be able to do that if we leave on this day. But I didn't get back to later that night because I said, hey, I'm on a gig, because my phone was blowing up. And they were like, we need to know ASAP. So the next day, getting asked like, okay, we need to leave at this time. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to miss too many things. Like, listen, I can go and do this extra gig or two that you just suddenly put on the last part, but like you would need to fly me down there. I can't, when you're driving, I would need to be playing. And so I could fly down and meet you there, and play with you in the evening when the gig was scheduled. Uh, and so, and I had already turned down other gigs to play this good opportunity. And so after I agreed to do something with this person, and I kind of juggled my schedule multiple times, they got back to me after I said, hey, I can do this gig that you want to do now, like 48 hours earlier than what we were supposed to be doing. I can do that. I'll just need to fly there instead of drive. And then this person got back to me. He's like, hey, thanks. We really appreciate your flexibility. We're going to go with somebody else who can do these gigs. And I was a little bit caught off guard because I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. Like, I rearranged my schedule multiple times to do this, and then like you're asking me to do something with like very, very little notice after I've already adjusted my schedule on little notice. And because I can't totally push everything back, you're just going to go on with somebody else. And I wanted to say, like, hey, listen, I moved around a lot of these things for you, and, I think I should be playing these gigs, and I'm sorry I can't do this, like, on this shorter notice, but, like, this is my job, and you're asking me to do something very last minute when, like, this is kind of just, like, a temporary thing. It's a one-time gig. But I didn't respond, like, with anything, like, kind of passive-aggressive or any, like, expressing disappointment. I said, okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know. And what I hit upon right there while I was speaking was that this is my job, right? And sometimes, like, they need somebody who can do the job. And sometimes that doesn't align with, like, your schedule. That doesn't align with your wants and needs. That doesn't align with your sense of fairness, but it's not your gig. And even if they, like, totally blew me off, which they didn't, but let's just say they totally blew me off and they totally just yanked me around and then found somebody else. And let's say I did, hypothetically, have a right to be mad or upset or, express some kind of disappointment. My honest question is, what good would expressing that disappointment do me? And that's, what I always want to do. I always want to, advocate for myself, advocate for other musicians, being like, hey, this ain't cool. And there's a time and place for that. And I was just thinking, what good is this going to do me if I, this artist, they're going through a tough time. What good would it do me if I piled on and just, like, said some things that were, like, negative and made their day a little bit harder or stressful? It's not going to accomplish anything. It's not going to change anything. Maybe even would, like, burn a bridge a little bit. And of course I didn't do that. And a younger version of me would have been like, well, I did all this and blah, blah, and gotten all, mad. But really, this is the business. And I understand, like, hey, if someone has to, like, things are totally up in the air and you're scrambling at last minute, sometimes things just get jumbled a little bit, and that's kind of the risk you take being a musician. That comes with the territory. It's not always fun. It's not always easy. And sometimes people do business in a different way you do. Sometimes people communicate in a very different way that you do. I've learned to just kind of meet people where they're at and understand where they're coming from and not take it personally, even if it kind of puts me in a bad spot, because it's just temporary, right? It's not like I was left in the middle, of Oklahoma in the Dust Bowl with, like, no phone, no car, no, someone just said, oh, we're going to go with somebody else. So, like, no one did me dirty. No one was intentionally malicious. Just things sometimes don't work out. And I really hope that this artist has a great run, because I like this artist. I've heard nothing but good things about them as people, like their music, and I wish them the best. And sometimes it's just about, okay, like, I'm going to take a step back, and am I more angry about my disappointment to not being able to do something, or somebody maybe I'm perceiving somebody seeing me as, not worthy, or like, oh, this guy's just a joker. He's a low man on the totem pole. We could find another one of him. And you could always find another drummer, right? And I have to I have to be like, okay, I have to be willing to accept that, and I have to kind of work my way up, and sometimes I have to take a little bit of risk on my end. Uh, it's just the name of the game. So, moral of the story is like, what do I have to gain by kind of like, flapping my gums at somebody, and if they're having a tough time, making that time tougher? It's like, this is a networking business. This is a business about like being cool with people and being friends with people. And even if you have a reason not to be cool, like, what good does being kind of like a dick to somebody be? It's like, that's my last resort. I used to always kind of be a sarcastic dick to kind of let people know, oh, I'm smart, and you can't, jerk me around. And that got me nowhere. So now my whole thing is like, all right, man, I'm just going to be cool. Don't burn any bridges. There's no reason to. So if you dig what I'm saying, like, follow, subscribe. And I'm not an influencer. I don't have a tagline. I don't have a sign off. I'm just a musician here talking about life as a musician.